It's the Chronicles of a Gooner. It's our transfer update show, and we are live.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast brought to you by 90 Min. We are live right now on YouTube. Big hello to those of you who are joining us at this moment in time. Big hello to those of you who will be watching this back on replay. And of course, to those of you listening via the audio platforms, you're all very, very welcome. Hope you're all good. Hope you all enjoyed the last couple of days of European football. We've been talking about the Euros on our podcast that dropped earlier today, our Euro 2020 daily show. We're shifting the focus back to Arsenal for this one, and we're going to get you guys up to date and discuss some of the latest transfer news regarding the Gunners. Now, of course, the Euros are great. The Euros are important. The Euros are keeping us all sane at the moment. But the Premier League season is not that far away. It's about a month and a half away now. And Arsenal are in need of some significant business, particularly if we're going to lose the players that we think we're going to lose this summer. So there is a lot of pressure on Arsenal Football Club to get business done. There is a lot of concern amongst the Arsenal faithful, even though there's still quite a way to go, that, you know, we're going to be cutting it fine again, like we always seem to do. But some news has emerged today that suggests that Arsenal are close to completing a couple of deals, which will strengthen the squad, in my opinion, but not necessarily the first team. And we'll come on to that in a little bit more detail in just a bit. Just a quick reminder, if you are watching us on YouTube and you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. If you're watching the video, hit the like button as well. That doesn't cost a thing, and it really, really helps. And if you're listening via the audio, well, leave us a review, because those help hugely, and we really, really appreciate your support. So let's get into the latest news, and the latest reports coming from various sources now are that Arsenal are closing in on a double deal worth around about £25 million for Anderlecht's Albert Sambi Lokonga, and of course Benfica's Nuno Tavares. Now let's start with Lokonga, the central midfielder. He's somebody that Arsenal have been linked with for a few weeks now. We understand that negotiations have progressed. We understand that Arsenal's initial bid of £13 million was turned down, that Arsenal have got closer to the £17 million mark, which is around about what Anderlecht were looking for around about 20 million euros, which equates to roughly that amount. It seems like a fee has been agreed from what we're hearing. However, there are a couple of bits and pieces that still need ironing out, and those details are around the sell-on clause that Anderlecht want to see included in the deal. So when we talk about the structure of the deal, we're talking about kind of how much of it's going to be paid up front, how much of a sell-on clause is going to be included, etc., etc. It just always feels with Arsenal, doesn't it, that this is the point where we get stuck. We get to a point where we come up with an offer or an amount of money that we're going to pay or invest in a player, and then the payment structure becomes our biggest stumbling point. Now, I think Arsenal, from what I've heard, have agreed the around about £17 million fee for Albert Sambi Lokonga, but now the sticking point, as I say, is around that sell-on clause. From what I've read in the Belgian press, Anderlecht are looking for around about 15%. Arsenal want 5%. You may see a meeting in the middle there, but there's nothing to suggest that this is going to be significant enough or enough of a kind of difference in the views of the two clubs to potentially scupper this deal. I think this deal is going to happen. I think this deal is imminent, and I expect it to be complete in the next couple of days. Moving on to Nuno Tavares. Now, of course, the Benfica left back is someone we've only actually been linked with for a few days. But it seems like that one is moving very, very quickly. Now, I say Arsenal have only been linked for a couple of days. What I mean is the reports have only been out there for a few days. But I'm sure that if this is a player that Arsenal are going to complete the signing of, there would have been plenty of homework done previously. Now, Nuno Tavares is expected to cost Arsenal around £7 million. That's according to Charles Watts of Goal. He says that it's very close to being agreed. Medical hasn't taken place yet, but the deal should be wrapped up in the coming days. And as we discussed yesterday, what's interesting about Nuno Tavares is that he is capable of playing it right back as well. And Mikel Arteta may have seen that as something that really kind of pushed him towards Tavares when deciding who to sign, because at right back, we could potentially have an issue this season as well with Hector Bellerin seemingly on his way out. And I guess people not being totally convinced at this moment in time around Callum Chambers and Cedric Suarez. So we'll have to see. But these two signings are the kind of signings I've been talking about from the end of last season. I know you've probably got sick of me saying this, but low risk, potentially high reward signings. That's what these guys are. Albert Lokonga is someone who, you know, I don't believe is necessarily 100% ready to walk into the first team and hold down a place, nor do I believe he should be put under that kind of pressure so early on in his career, but who has the potential to go on and be a really, really impressive player and then marshal that Arsenal midfield for many years to come. In Nuno Tavares, you're looking at someone who's coming in as an understudy to Kieran Tierney. Whoever Arsenal signed was always going to come in on that premise, on that basis. And what I like about the Nuno Tavares deal is, yes, there are a couple of things that need improving in Nuno Tavares' game. You know, from reports I've read, he can be a little bit rash. He can be a little bit raw at times. But you're talking about bringing in a young player who you could coach, who you could potentially develop, rather than going and signing, you know, we were talking about, and I was talking about Ryan Bertrand previously. And now the more I think about it, the more you think somebody like Tavares with the potential to improve, as opposed to an older player who's happy to come and collect this paycheck and potentially would only be declining, makes more sense. So let's see how this one goes. But, you know, just going back to the midfield bit and talking about obviously Lokonga coming in, I said that I don't expect him to come in and have to play every week, and nor should that pressure be applied to him. I do expect Arsenal to go out and bring in another central midfielder. Who that will be, however, remains to be seen. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen it on social media. Gabriel, of course, tapping up his former teammate, Renato Sanchez, on Instagram. And Renato Sanchez has had a pretty good European Championships. He's had a bit of an upturn in form over the last couple of seasons since moving to France. Obviously had a difficult spell, joined Bayern Munich for big money. Didn't really work out, went out on loan a couple of times. That didn't really work out either. But it's good to see him back at sort of the level that many people thought he would reach. And I actually like Renato Sanchez. I'm still a little bit iffy about him, I've got to be honest. Just that's based on, you know, what happened previously. That's based on his previous spell in the Premier League. I know a lot has happened since then. A lot has changed. He's grown older. He's improved as a footballer. But it's difficult to kind of get that out of your mind until you see otherwise. And aside from a few appearances in the Euros, I haven't watched much of Lille to be able to tell you how good he's been on the whole. But from what we're reading and from what people are telling me, it's actually been quite impressive. Let's go over to the live chat box and say a few hellos. Big hello to Assassin General, to Josh, to Nicholas, to Tawana, to ADT, to Dave, to Aaron, who says, happy birthday to your mother. Thank you very much. It was my mum's birthday yesterday. So, yes, thank you for your kind wishes. I'll pass them on. I'm sure she'll be delighted. What else have we got here? James Jenkins says, forget Springsteen. Harry is the boss. Great content as usual. Thank you very much, mate. Appreciating it. Ram says, hello, Harry. Arsenal are building back strong. Sam Tonks wants Renato Silva. James says, smash the like button. It makes Harry smile. It absolutely does. What else have we got here? Sam says, new young blood in the squad, just what we need. Arsenal moving quietly. Love to see it. Josh Hunter says, the only worry with Tavares is his concentration on defending. Yeah, and that kind of builds on the point that I was saying, you know, that I think we do recognize, and I think anybody who's watched him will recognize that he is still not quite at the level required, not quite at peak. But as I say, when you're trying to recruit somebody who is coming in on understanding that they're going to be an understudy to someone, like is going to be the case with Kieran Tierney. You've got to make that decision. You go one of two ways. You go for the older, more experienced kind of campaigner who's been there, done it, probably looking to wind down their career, happy, as I say, to collect their paycheck and kind of just muddle through and come in and do a job when called upon. Or you go down the route of someone who's a bit younger, who's still got plenty to prove, still got plenty to learn, can actually learn from playing as an understudy to somebody like Kieran Tierney, as opposed to just, learn from Kieran Tierney with a view to making that spot or another spot in the team their own, rather than just looking to sort of come in as a backup. So I quite like the idea of going down the younger route, going down the route of someone that needs something to improve on. And listen, Nuno Tavares has got some flaws. As I say, he's a little bit raw. He can be a little bit rash. Concentration is something that, he's not always been able to maintain. But as an athlete, he is incredible. And I think it's so important nowadays that a fullback is that athletic. I mean, you look at Kyle Walker, who's, in my opinion, made a career out of being an athletic fullback, made a career based on his athleticism rather than his footballing ability. I'm not saying that Kyle Walker is a terrible footballer, but he wouldn't be at the level he is now had it not been for that athleticism. I mean, we talked about it on the Euros podcast earlier, where we discussed sort of the role he played in kind of forcing Thomas Müller to waste that opportunity that came his way, to miss it, just by being there, just by striking fear into his opponents with his incredibly electric pace. And that is, that is really important, I think, in a modern day fullback. What else have we got here in the chat before we move on? Let's pick up a couple more bits. Sam says Ben White is in as a DM, replacing Xhaka and centre back option. Banging start to the window. Big hello to Vishal. What else have we got? What else? Daruv says, now to strengthen the first team of quality central mid and a centre attacking midfielder is a must. I wouldn't mind letting Chambers and Cedric be the right backs this season. We need quality in midfield. Yeah, I mean, if we couldn't afford to bring in a right back as well as the CM and the central attacking midfielder, then I'd agree with you. I think that's a position I'd like us to improve on. But if that has to kind of be slightly knocked down the pecking order so that we can do business in what I believe to be more important areas, I would agree with you, Drew. And I think that, the priority in this order now, so let's assume that Lokonga's in, let's assume that Nuno Tavares is in, then I think you look at, for me, bringing in another centre midfielder and an attacking midfielder. Those are the two areas we need to strengthen. And if we can get another right back in, great. But I agree with you, mate. I think if you have to let those two do the job, because I think, look, a lot of people give Cedric criticism. And I actually think that at right back, forget the time, where he had to play at left back and he looked a little bit out of sorts and he got caught out a couple of times. At left back, Cedric has been pretty much flawless. I can't think of a time he played at right back for Arsenal and performed poorly. I can think of a couple of moments he had in the season, but if my memory serves me correctly, both of those moments or 2, 3, 4 moments, whatever it was, all occurred when he was being asked to play out of position at left back. So yeah, I think you've got a strong point there, Drew. I really, really do. Bajwa says, loving the content, Harry. Thank you very much. He says, what position in this window would be our marquee signing? Ben White. I think as a football fan, I think you always kind of want your marquee signing to be an attacking player. I do anyway. And when I think about those positions that I've just talked about, the central midfield position and the attacking midfield position, I'd like to see one of those be the marquee signing. Listen, if we're going to get Ben White in as well, absolutely fantastic. But I don't actually believe that Ben White is coming in as a DM. I know a couple of you have suggested that in the chat already today. For me, I don't think so. I think that Ben White comes in as a centre-back. And I think probably William Saliba's Arsenal career is I don't know, it's not looking good, is it? And, many of you will have noticed the reports yesterday with William Saliba's agent being at London Coney to have discussions with Arsenal. And I think the problem here with Saliba is that obviously he's returned from his loan spell at Nice. And I think the narrative that was being sort of pumped out to us as, as fans, as journalists from the club, was that he'd be afforded the opportunity to come back into the side, prove himself in pre-season. And then you think about the fact that he's been called up to the Olympics to represent France, for the Olympics. And you wonder how that's going to work. You wonder what an impact that's going to have. And I have to say, it's probably going to be a negative one, because what time is William Saliba going to have on the training ground to show Mikel Arteta what he can do? You know, I can't imagine he's going to have more than a couple of weeks either side of the Olympics to prove his worth. And is that enough? I would argue it's probably not. So, I actually think that the Olympic call-up has probably thrown a bit of a curveball towards William Saliba now. And, I don't know what that means for him. But I guess the other side of it is, I think Mikel Arteta was probably already sort of not sure about him. We know he wasn't last season, but the fact that Arsenal are rumoured to be so close to completing a deal for Ben White then makes you feel like, well, Arsenal already knew, Arsenal already felt, Arsenal already made up their mind about Saliba before they decided to go and try and break the bank for another centre-half. So, yeah, it's difficult to see how William Saliba comes into the team now and really, how he comes in the team and really makes an impact. I think there's been a lot of talk about him going away on loan again. And if that is to be the case, where do you send him? Newcastle are rumoured to be interested in William Saliba. And if you do send him out on loan, I think it has to be to a Premier League club. I think we have to be able to look at him in the environment in which we will then be asking him to thrive, to prove himself, to perform, before we can make a real judgment on that. I'm not discrediting French football. I'm not saying it's shit. I'm not going to go as far as some football fans saying call it Farmers League, but it is not anywhere near the level of the Premier League. The game is not played with anywhere near the same intensity. And I think you have to consider all of that. So sending him to France again, would that benefit us as a football club? Would that give us a definitive sort of answer with regards to whether or not he's ready to play for this Arsenal side and to be a part of the first team squad? I don't think it would. So I think you either make a decision on Saliba and say, well, we're going to keep you around and we're going to give you a go, and maybe decide to send him out on loan if the right offer comes in, or you just sell him. And I know a lot of people ain't going to want to hear that, but that's kind of where I'm at on it. Let's go back to the chat because there are a few questions in, and we'll take some questions. We normally do it at the end of the show, but we'll take some now as well. Let's see what else we've got. Inter says that not too delighted with the rumored signing, says they're a little bit underwhelming. Yeah, I get that, but as long as it's not our only business, I'm not too concerned about it. What else have we got here? James Jenkins says Juve swap Ramsey for Xhaka. Anything to this story? Not that I'm aware of. I don't think that is the case. I mean, Aaron Ramsey's representatives have rubbished reports that he's looking for a return back to the Premier League. I think Ramsey's quite sort of content at Juve. I think that Aaron Ramsey was initially identified actually by Max Allegri as a player he quite liked, and with Allegri returning to Turin, I'd imagine that Aaron Ramsey will probably be given a fair chance under the Italian. So if I were Ramsey, I'd probably stay put. And I said this on a podcast a couple of days ago, and I actually had a couple of DMs about this, people sort of vehemently disagreeing with what I said. But I said that Arsenal could compete with Juve on a financial footing, but not necessarily on a sporting one. And what I meant by that was Arsenal are not going to challenge for the Premier League next season. Let's be honest about it. Let's be honest about where we are. But Juventus are certainly going to challenge for the Scudetto next season. And that, that appeals to players, doesn't it? Sam says, is Aaron Ramsdale a satisfying backup goalkeeper? We're not moving for Matty Ryan. I'm not convinced in Ramsdale being at a higher level. It's an interesting one, isn't it, this Ramsdale link? It's one that whichever way I kind of look at it and whichever way I come at it, I can't quite understand it. I can't quite understand the appeal of bringing in a goalkeeper for 20 plus million unless you think he's going to be your number one for seasons to come. And then I think, well, what does that mean about Bernd Leno? Is there something going on with Bernd Leno that we're not necessarily wise to yet? Is Bernd Leno heading for the exit door? And, it's just not kind of public knowledge yet. I don't know. We read some reports yesterday that suggested that Arsenal had kind of decided that they didn't want to go for the stopgap type second choice goalkeeper like Matty Ryan was last season. We were desperate at that point. We'd lost Martinez in the summer. We were left with Runarsson, who we understood was brought in with a view to being the third choice goalkeeper, played a couple of times, a few times, handful of times, never really convinced anybody that he was anything more than that. And now we're looking at Ramsdale. I just think to spend £20 million on Ramsdale, if Bernd Leno is staying put, would be irresponsible given that the number of positions we need to strengthen in this summer. And, price and figure aside, am I convinced that Aaron Ramsdale's the man? I'm not. I'm really not. What else have we got here? Let's pick out a few more bits and pieces from the chat box. It's constantly updating, so bear with me. Omar says Tavares is a known troublemaker. Do we really need any more such characters after Guendouzi and Saliba? I think it's a bit harsh to call Saliba one. I think that Guendouzi is one for sure. But, I think I don't know a great deal about Nuno Tavares' history. I don't know, what's gone on with him behind the scenes at Benfica. So I'd be sort of lying if I said I did and really try to get into this. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting if that is an issue, if that is the type of character that he is. I'd be surprised because I think Mikel Arteta is normally quite wise to that kind of thing, and we've seen he's kind of got a no nonsense sort of attitude towards that. He's got no tolerance whatsoever, has he, for players whose attitude is not where it needs to be. So yeah, I'm not overly concerned about that, and I didn't know, if I'm honest, that Tavares is someone with that kind of reputation. There was a question from Ross Taylor. Harry, how long does Saliba have left on his contract? He's got till 2024. Was looking this up yesterday. Yeah, June 30th, 2024. So he's got a bit of time left yet. And Arsenal would still be in a position to make the right move and make a smart move further down the line. So I'm not too concerned by that at this moment in time. Nicholas says, with Arteta's system, the right back seems to move into the centre midfield in possession. Are you worried with Chambers and Cedric's ability to do this? Also, with the apparent lack of targets who can perform in this system. I think you've seen that, and you saw Hector Bellerin do that quite often last season. A lot of Arsenal fans were quite quick to sort of shout and kick off and have a go and criticise Hector Bellerin for tucking in. But that was obviously a manager's instruction. We'd all been watching Hector Bellerin for many, many years prior to Mikel Arteta taking over. And we'd seen him bomb on. And that was what was great about Hector Bellerin when he first burst onto the scene, was his ability to get forward and get involved in play, and then having that recovery pace and speed to get back and prevent situations sort of unfolding defensively. So, Bellerin for me got a lot of stick for that, when, as you rightly point out, Nicholas, it is something that the manager wants. It is something that the manager feels is important. And I think he probably feels it's important so that it releases the left back, if that makes sense, by stepping into the midfield or tucking in. You always want to defend the width of your penalty area first and foremost. And by being able to do that, by being able to add an additional man into that midfield mix, it protects your centre halves a bit more, and it allows you to compensate for your left back being given the freedom that Kieran Tierney is given. So I think it's something that Mikel Arteta likes. It's something that he's clearly taken from Pep Guardiola, and that's fine. He's not a bad person to learn from, is he? Am I worried about Chambers and Cedric's ability to do this? Not majorly. As I say, whenever Cedric's played at right back, I've never had any complaints. I keep saying it. A couple of the errors he made along the way were when he was asked to play out of position. With Callum Chambers, I'm not as big on Callum Chambers as a lot of Arsenal fans are. I think, he tries hard. I think he's enthusiastic. He loves being at Arsenal, and I get all of that. But going back to the point of these two players, Chambers and Cedric, in an ideal world, would I like to see them as Arsenal's right back options? Absolutely not. But we have to be realistic about what we can achieve in this window. And I know sort of over the past week and maybe the week even before that, there have been multiple reports suggesting that Arsenal are going to go really big in the transfer window. And I think that's kind of raised the level of expectation going into July now. So, as I said, I don't think any of them are the ideal option. Any of them are the ideal candidate. Any of them are going to, show themselves to be top drawer. But what they are they're both solid options, in my opinion. And I would rather that we focused on the areas that we've spoken about already, as opposed to sort of spending big on a right back just yet. TB says, Harry, we're winning the league, mate. White, Tavares, Lokonga, Locatelli, Renato, Sanchez, or Bissouma, Madison. We're winning it all. One game a week. Bring it on. Love the optimism, mate. Love the optimism. Brilliant stuff. Josh Hunter, where was your I had your question and I just lost it. And a couple of you have actually asked this question as well. So I'm going to pick this one up. What's your opinion on Pope being the backup goalkeeper? I actually prefer Nick Pope to Aaron Ramsdale. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but that's my view. So yeah, I wouldn't be against that. A couple of you asking that Nick Pope question. Nicholas asks, with rumours Juve see Xhaka as an economically safe option, should we be going all out for Locatelli to try and pinch him with Juve's rumoured poor financial situation? So I actually had on my little notes thing to talk about Manuel Locatelli, because obviously I'm a massive Italian football fan as well as being an Arsenal fan. And, I was talking about Locatelli and I was talking about Barella and a number of other players sort of prior to the Euros as well. And the situation with Locatelli is as follows. He prefers to move to Juve. Locatelli would absolutely love to move to Juventus. I've talked about a reluctance in top-level Italian players to want to move away. That's because they believe in their league. They believe in their competition. They understand and they love and they admire and they value the history of some of their great football clubs and the history of the competition, which is truly brilliant, and it's great to watch an Italy side sort of come to the Euros quite unfancied in the sense of, they're not full of the household names that they might have had in the past. And the reason they're not household names is because the eyes and the kind of the attention on Serie A has sort of fallen away in recent years. There was the Calciopoli scandal. There was the sort of decision to, or the fact that, the TV rights were no longer very accessible here in the UK without you signing up to another subscription. And that's what happened. And that's why Serie A became largely unpopular and kind of went under the radar a little bit. But what's great about Serie A is that you're watching a squad where only 2-3 of the players in it, prior to the tournament kicking off, because obviously Donnarumma's on his way to PSG, were Italian-based players. So it just goes to show, doesn't it, that there is talent in other leagues that we can be a little bit narrow-minded to. It's the same with La Liga at the moment. You look at La Liga now, it's no longer on Sky Sports. And here in the UK, I'm sure lots of you are not going to bother paying a subscription. And why should you? To La Liga TV to watch it. So it's kind of like, when it was accessible, I don't know about you guys, but if I sat down on a Sunday night, time to unwind, I just watched the English football and I was just chilling out and was kind of half paying attention to a game, I'd flick on La Liga because it was on Sky Sports. And unless you do that, you're probably not aware and not as wise to some of these players. But I digress there to talk about La Liga and Serie A. I don't know why digression is my thing, but Locatelli would prefer to remain in Italy. There's no doubt about that. There's no question about that. He would prefer to join Juventus. However, from the latest reports that we're reading that are coming out of Italy, Juve are not able to pay the 40 million euros in cash that Sassuolo are looking for Manuel Locatelli. Arsenal can, if we're to believe the reports of a huge summer transfer kitty. So there is an opportunity for Arsenal to do this. And when I made that point earlier on, when I said Arsenal can't compete necessarily from a sporting perspective, we certainly bloody can financially. And I'd like to see Arsenal go and apply pressure on Sassuolo to allow Locatelli to leave. I'd like to see Arsenal go and pursue that deal for a player who I think is fantastic and would really, really improve this team. So yeah, it's something that we should be considering. It's something that we should be trying to do for me. Let me pick out a couple more questions. Matt G says, I'm at work. We'll watch on catch up. Thanks for the updates, Harry. No problem at all, mate. Thank you for consistently tuning in as well. Big hello to Jack the Ripper as well. He was watching our Euros podcast a little bit earlier on, but was half asleep. It was early in the morning, to be fair to you. Yeah, great stuff. Olivier says, Madison and Aouar, nothing new that I'm aware of with regards to either of those two players. Aouar feels like a bit of a convenient link given how sort of heavily we were interested in him, or is that the right word, heavily, given how strong the interest in him last season was said to be. But no, nothing new on that from what I've heard. And Madison, I said it a couple of days ago, looks very unlikely to me just purely because of the cost. I don't think Arsenal would be willing to go that extra mile, and that would be required in order to persuade Leicester to sell him. Vishal says, any news on Willian leaving the club? With respect, he's quite literally the only outgoing player I'm actually worried about. No news on Willian leaving the club at the moment. There were rumours at the back end of last season that he could be on his way to the MLS. Not sure that's going to happen this summer. And look, the Willian transfer didn't work out. He hasn't worked out, right? I think we can all agree on that. But it was a free transfer. And, if Arsenal make one mistake in every 5 transfers, then you kind of just, you just got to be accepting of it. As I always say, my famous old catchphrase, there is no transfer in football that is completely risk-free. Let's get this one from Inter. Says, if we are told to trust the process and Arteta took a bigger job, wouldn't that say he's full of shit, which I believe he is? What are you saying, that Arteta's going to leave this season? I don't see it somehow. Arteta will not leave the job this season unless he's pushed out the door. And, if Arteta, let's just say Arteta was approached by Barcelona, why wouldn't he consider that? Why wouldn't he consider that? It wouldn't be a reflection of him. It wouldn't mean that what he was saying was bullshit. It would mean that he was on board with a project, and at some point somebody came along and turned his head. We've seen great players leave the club in years gone by to join other bigger clubs, clubs competing at higher level, clubs with more potential, etc. So no, I wouldn't really read into that too much, if I'm honest, and I wouldn't worry about that yet. Listen, Mikel Arteta is going to be under incredible pressure at the start of next season if things don't sort of start well. We all know that. We accept that. He got his free ride season for me last year where, he was not expected to do a great deal. I still think that the Europa League exit and the nature of it was probably enough to justify a case for him to be sacked. But at the same time, when you take the emotion out of it and you calm down a little bit later on, you think, well, what's the point in appointing someone like Arteta, who's clearly still a work in progress, who's clearly in the club's view for the longer term, and then sacking him after his first full season? It wouldn't have made sense. So it would have been the right decision in the eyes of many, but in the cold light of day, a hypocritical one from the club, and almost an admission that they'd made a mistake in trusting someone like Arteta, who had relatively little experience in the process. So let's see. This is the time for Arteta to shine, and he's got to shine. And I think what I'm very cautious of is looking at that first run of games. And I think that Nicholas points that out in the chat. When you look at the opening few games that Arsenal have in the Premier League, I think it's very important that you temper your expectations in line with that, and that you don't go into the season saying, well, Arsenal need to win 5 out of 5 at the start of the season for me to be happy. I mean, the first game of the season, Brentford, right? Then you're talking about a game against Chelsea, Manchester City, Norwich, Burnley, and then it's Tottenham. So there's some really difficult games at the start of their campaign, and you're going to have to look at a few things, aren't you, when kind of making that decision if the start's been good enough, rather than it just necessarily being black or white. So I'm not saying he won't be under pressure from the start of next season. I've already admitted that. I just, if we go and get beaten by Chelsea and Manchester City at the start of the season, am I going to be saying that Arteta should be sacked then? No, probably not. If we go and get beaten 5-6-0 by both those sides, it's a different story. But he knows better than anyone that he's under pressure. Make no mistake about it. Gianfranco says, Harry, in your opinion, who's the number 10 that Arsenal are more likely to get this summer? The number 10 talk's quietened down a little bit, hasn't it? Off the back of all the links with Lokonga and with Tavares, and now we're talking about maybe a potential move for Locatelli. The number 10 talk has calmed down a little bit. I still wouldn't rule out a move for Martin Odegaard. I know that there's kind of been a lot of negativity about that, and there's been there's been a lot of talk about Real Madrid not wanting to sell, and is he worth the money that Real Madrid would be demanding? And I get all of that. I just think that Real Madrid, when push comes to shove, could be tempted, and I wouldn't be surprised if they find themselves in a position a little bit later on in the window where they're going, well, we've got other business we want to do. I'm not sure where else we're going to raise the money from. So maybe we'll entertain something from Arsenal. And from what we're led to believe, going into the summer, he was Arsenal's number one target at number 10. So I don't think they'll completely give up hope on that one just yet, contrary to what the reports are saying. Just another bit of information for you guys before we wrap up as well, that sort of read just sort of before coming on live. David Luiz supposedly in talks with Marseille over a potential move. Interesting, that one. Very, very interesting. Let's go back to the chat box. Big thank you to Said Abdullah for your very, very kind super chat donation. Thank you so much, mate. Really, really appreciate that. And if you'd like to donate to the channel, you can do so by using the super chat feature, or you can become a member and get access to some exclusive content as well, and access to our Discord server. All you need to do is click on the link in the description, and you'll be able to jump in there and get involved with all the conversations in our Discord server, but also get access to the tiers of membership. That's what I meant to say. Sometimes I try and read comments and I'm talking and I just go off on one off the blue. So yeah, apologies. Interesting. Rafa Benitez just been appointed by Everton as well. That's an interesting appointment. Side says, big up, Harry. What's your expectations for next season? If Arsenal finish top 6, is that progress? Yeah, it is. I said this at the start of last season. What I wanted from Arsenal and why I ultimately think the Premier League campaign was a failure was not necessarily for Arsenal to get in the top 4. I was realistic about that, but I wanted to see Arsenal challenge for it. And when I say challenge, I mean go into the final weeks of the season with a chance to get into the top. Here we go. I think I'm back. Got to apologize about that drop off in internet connection again. I'll be on the phone having words with them because I've even got a wired connection and it still seems to happen to me every couple of days. But I think we're back now. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat if we are back, and apologies for that. What's my expectation? So yeah, I was saying I wanted to see Arsenal challenge for the top 4, to be in contention for the top 4 come the end of the season. And I think obviously that wasn't achievable last season. So I'm going to take that aim forward, and fingers crossed we can do that this season. That's the expectation for me now. He's had a free hit of a season, had half a season before that. He's being backed in the transfer market, it seems, from a financial point of view anyway. So yeah, got to get it done. Got to get in there. Got to give it a go at least. If we miss out by a few points, I'm not going to be calling for him to be sacked because it would be progress. But that's my aim for sure. A few more bits and pieces. You know what? We'll keep going. I'm good for time. for once in my life. There it bloody goes again. Oh, we're back. Yep, we're back. 67 likes on the video, but there is over 250 of you watching us. So let's get that up to 100 as well. Surely we can get that up to 100 as soon as possible. It would really, really help. So please do so. Eugene asked if there's an update on Emil Smith-Rowe. No update other than the one that we dropped the other day. Aston Villa have had a second offer in the region of £30 million refused, rebuffed, knocked back by the Gunners for Emil Smith-Rowe. But Arsenal, there's still a feeling within the club that we're very close to getting Emil Smith-Rowe to signing a new contract. And as I've said previously, it's not necessarily about the term of Emil Smith-Rowe's contract, because it's not that urgent in that sense, because 2023, it is more about sort of putting him on a salary, on a pay packet that reflects his importance to the team, because of course he was a really important player for us in the second part of last season, and you know, and he's not on a salary that reflects that, and that's not fair on the young lad. Lots of you kind of talking about Rafa Benitez and that appointment, and what that kind of means for Everton, and how positive that is. It's a decent appointment for Everton. You know, the thing with Rafa Benitez, and not just Rafa Benitez, right, but a number of like these kind of managers that you're talking about in the sort of that kind of profile, I think they're at the back end of their careers, and I can't see them staying in jobs for very, very long. And I think Everton is somewhere where you need to be a little bit patient. You need to give them a bit of time, because they've changed managers a lot. They've thrown money at managers, Koeman, Ancelotti, etc., Marco Silva, and it's never really worked out. It's all been very short term. And then a new manager comes in, and he's got to deal with leftover players from the previous guy, and it's just all been a little bit of a mess. I like him. I like Rafa Benitez. I'd be interesting to see how that's going to work. It's not a job I thought he would take necessarily, given his Liverpool connections, but despite the abuse he's been getting and the banners placed outside his house or whatever it was, I think, yeah, it looks like he signed for them, and you know, best of luck to him. I haven't got any ill feeling towards Everton or Rafa Benitez. A couple of you asking about Patrick Vieira and what looks like it's going to be his imminent appointment at Crystal Palace. I'm not a big fan of Patrick Vieira as a manager. I've got to be honest. I like him. He's an Arsenal legend. You know, of course, you know, I've got a massive soft spot for him. I'm not sure it's going to work. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not sure it's going to work. And maybe sort of once that's official, we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into Patrick Vieira's managerial career, because I think it's quite an interesting managerial career, and he took quite an interesting route in comparison to what a lot of former players take. So yeah, we'll touch on that maybe when that deal is done and finalized. Right, I'm going to leave it there because the internet is giving me all sorts of shit at the moment. Apologies for the couple of times it's buffered. I'm going to have to go and restart the router. I don't know what the hell's going on again. But thank you for all bearing with me and for being patient. And for those of you on the audio, apologies for the blank spot of about 10-15 seconds where it all went tits up. But yeah, I'll catch you all very, very soon with more Arsenal related content. Until next time, take care. Ciao.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.